In a world of 350 billion movie podcasts, two chumps have decided that now is the time for cult movies to engage in combat. Disagreements will be had, blood may be spilled, and voiceover artists most definitely will not be paid. This is Cult Film Face-Off.
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Cult Film Face-Off. My name is Chet Roivers. With me as usual is Nick Leonard.
Merry Christmas!
Yeah, this is our second Christmas episode. Last year we did Black Christmas versus Silent Night, Deadly Night. So we wanted to do another vaguely Christmas-themed episode this year. And I have to apologise because this is laziness on my part. The first thing I thought of was that question that just gets asked every Christmas, Lethal Weapon or Die Hard, which I thought, hey, that might make for an interesting episode until I realised that, you know, I love Die Hard. Sorry, I love Lethal Weapon as much as anybody, but come on.
It ain't no Die Hard.
Well, I mean, that's understating it. But yeah, so I thought, why not look at their two first sequels, because they were very, very highly praised for action movie sequels, especially when they came out. And I thought at least one of them set at Christmas, so what the hell. Also, I'm completely aware that we will never, ever cover two films that are less classifiable as cult movies than these two. There is nothing cult about either of these films, but hey ho, we're in now, we've done it, so we're going to talk about them. We're talking about Lethal Weapon 2 from 1989 and Die Hard 2 from 1990, obviously, but we'll start with Lethal Weapon 2, the first one out of the gate in 1989, directed by Richard Donner. Two mismatched LA police detectives find themselves hot on the trail of a band of South African diplomats who are using their diplomatic immunity to engage in international cocaine smuggling. Lethal Weapon 2.
Who in?
Police, open up.
How do I know you're the police?
After I shoot you through the door, you can examine the bullet. Open up.
Mel Gibson, Danny Glover.
Come on, let's go, Raj.
Oh, no, we shouldn't go.
Let's go. Come on, Raj. Don't be a killjoy.
Come on, we're back.
We're bad. You're black. I'm mad.
Come on, man. Hey, listen. If we're going, shouldn't I have a gun?
No.
Now, get ready for something lethal.
I'm surprised you haven't heard about me. You know, I got a bad reputation, and sometimes I just go nuts like now.
Because the magic
Gun!
is back.
Mark, knock the window down.
You all right, man? Yeah, I'm okay. Where were you, man? You my partner or what? Why didn't you follow me down?
Yeah, why don't you follow him down?
Shut up! I'm 7 floors up!
Lethal Weapon 2.
You go first. I'm really too old for this.
You go first. I'll cover you.
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Good police work, officer.
Come on.
No.
Back to my place. Hey, I'll even cook.
You're lucky. I have to live with that. You're not gonna make it.
I'm gonna make it.
You know, there's not enough room.
You were right, you know. Yeah, there wasn't enough room.
Lethal Weapon 2. This time, they're not taking any crap.
Just get off me, man. I don't want anybody to see us like that.
Okay, so Lethal Weapon 2, I'm assuming you've seen this before, Nick?
Yes, I have indeed.
When it came out? No, we would have been too young for the cinema.
No,
But,
I rented it.
what's your relationship with it? Did you like it? Have you seen it since?
No, I've seen it once.
You've only seen Lethal Weapon 2 once? That's so surprising.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I assume you didn't think much of it back then.
No, not really. I mean, it was funny because I started watching it and I was like, oh, okay, it's coming back to me now. And as soon as I saw Josh Ackland as obviously the baddie, I started cracking up because at school there was a kid that if he got told off or whatever, he would just respond, I've got diplomatic immunity.
Yeah.
So that really made me laugh. I had no recollection of the film whatsoever. I saw it once years ago. Yeah, I felt very nostalgic watching this because I'd watched Lethal Weapon 1, dozens of times. Lethal Weapon 2, once, Lethal Weapon 3, definitely once. Is that the one where Joe Pesci's mourning over his, pet...
Froggy, isn't
That's it, Froggy.
That's Lethal Weapon 4.
Was by far... Oh, that was 4.
Yeah, so 3's the one when he's got peroxide blonde hair and it's got the most unmemorable villain in cinematic history.
Who's the villain?
I forget the actor's name. He's a British actor, not very prominent. He's very good, but I can't remember. He's got a moustache. He buries someone in concrete at some point. It's really Lethal Weapon 3 is not a good film.
Right. Okay. I just remember number 4 being by far the one I disliked Lethal Weapon 4. I don't remember disliking any of the other sequels. Yeah. So I was very much like the first kind of half an hour. I was just really loving being in the company of Murtaugh and Briggs again. They've got a brilliant chemistry chemistry.
Briggs?
Is that Johnny Briggs? You know?
Did you say Briggs?
Yeah, is it? Well, my handwriting looks like I've written Briggs.
Murtaugh is those Riggs?
It's Riggs, isn't
Riggs.
it?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Never mind.
Not Johnny Briggs.
No.
Yeah, so Murtaugh and Briggs. Yeah, so I enjoyed being back in their company and the way they riff and bounce off each other. Yeah, that was the first kind of half an hour. And then you're introduced to some very, very cartoon, over-the-top South African baddies who there's not really much difference between white supremacists, white Nazi supremacists and South Africans. Same difference, right?
Yeah, right.
What did you think? Have you seen Lethal Weapon 2 hundreds of times then? Have you seen it many, many times?
I saw all of the, apart from 4, which came out many years after, I think there was a long gap. I saw the first 3 countless times. I mean, the first the most, the third probably the second amount, and the second Lethal Weapon film was always my least favourite of the first 3. People always talk about movies that put a foot wrong as soon as before the credits have rolled, or as soon as the credits have rolled. As soon as this movie starts, there's a circus fanfare that's kind of like the start of some Rodgers and Hammerstein musical or Hello Dolly, and then the title comes up and it's like it's immediately completely different. I thought this was a gradual process that in my mind Lethal Weapon became a sitcom gradually, but this is a sitcom straight away. Even the music cues, little blast of saxophone and electric guitar to underscore the laughs or stuff like that, you know, when Riggs is telling a sad story, saxophone. I was like, this is really uncool, and it's a sitcom straight away. I thought it was something that happened over the course of the films, but it's just immediately 2 came out, and it's basically a straight comedy, and it's weirdly proud of the chemistry that Danny Glover and Mel Gibson have, which is understandable because they do have great chemistry. But the tagline of this movie, do you remember what it was?
No.
The magic is back.
Okay.
Which is weirdly like. I'll say whether it's they have magical chemistry for a movie to come. I mean, this culminated in the 4th film's tagline, which is the worst tagline in cinema history. Do you remember what that was?
Nope.
The gang's all here. That's the tagline.
Oh,
like, look what we've got. Look how. I mean, it's so proud of its own. You know, of all that. Anyway, the thing that's most wrong with this movie is that Mel Gibson's character is not mad anymore. In the original film, Mel Gibson was a threat to Danny Glover. He was a threat to his family. Nobody, not even Riggs, knew what would happen to him, where his mind would go, what would happen, and that's completely gone. And it's also, the film's so old-fashioned that it's just basically unrelatable. When Danny Glover's daughter stars in a condom advertisement, his reaction is so weird. And then his younger daughter talks about human development class, and he's like, he's outraged that they're learning about reproduction, which is the weirdest. And why is he so protective of an adult woman? It's so weird. It's like the Steve Martin Father of the Bride remake. You watch it thinking, do you want to bang your daughter? What is this weird?
Isn't he overprotective with her because she's like got some sort of learning disabilities?
She's got learning disabilities.
I'm joking.
I mean, at least that is some kind of logic to it. As it is, he's just a weird, ultra. I mean, just prudish. It's so weird.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't as down. I certainly wasn't as down on this film. I actually think that it sort of traverses laughs and serious drama and action. Kind of, it just kind of juts from one to the other. Fairly, you know, it didn't really feel clunky to me the way it was doing it. It kind of rattled along at a good pace. The 2 car chases were decent, especially the second one, which ends with the surfboard slamming into the guy's chops.
Yeah, there is some good, decent action in this actually. But did you actually laugh at any of it?
No, I don't think I laughed out loud. I don't think I laughed out loud at any of it. No.
It's weird because I just feel like we get more sophisticated. So Hollywood product will always change with the times, and I didn't want to be too harsh on this, but
I think it's very much a product of its time. It's extremely 80s.
Yeah, it feels really old, but like the humour is often just someone shouting at Joe Pesci to shut the fuck up, and him rabbiting on. It didn't seem like...
Yeah, but Joe Pesci, I never found I always found Joe Pesci a bit of an annoying entity in the lead.
He is supposed to be horrendously annoying, though. That's the point.
But so annoying that he's really funny.
I don't know. There's dialogue exchanges between Murtaugh and Riggs that are supposed to they scream over each other constantly, and I'm just like, there's not even supposed to be dialogue here. They're just it's really, really basic bickering. So I thought, as a comedy, I was like, wow, this is amazing that people thought this was not only a good movie but a really good comedy. It got such good reviews at the time.
That's interesting. I don't remember what the reviews were like when it first came out. I mean, the baddies are genuinely bad. I thought that was good. I mean, they are like cold, sadistic, racist killers. You know, they systematically bomb. You know, they're coordinating bombing and killing of mass police forces. They are like a nasty bunch of baddies for the guys to come up against.
I did think it was really cheap, where at one point, to try and harness some of the power of the original, one of the bad guys just turns around and says, "Oh, you know that wife you were mourning in the first film? It was actually me. I killed her." And I thought that
it's a horrific death.
Whose death?
Riggs' wife.
You know what? In the car crash?
No, but the way it's just the way they talk about it in front of Riggs, I mean, it's just a horrible way to go.
But throwing that in, just going, oh, by the way, your wife didn't actually die in a car wreck. I killed her. I don't know. It just felt like it was desperately trying to trade off the power of the first film.
I just thought it was quite nice, and also the fact that the current woman that he's doing, she gets offed really badly, and she's like at the bottom of the river. They show it quite explicitly.
Patsy Kensit was really good.
I just thought that was all done quite well, because that was actually quite nasty and quite dark. I was quite surprised that came out of mixed in with all this comedy and action was this actually pretty dark bit of drama.
Yeah, I thought it was odd just because the first film.
I haven't seen the first film in such a long time.
I watched it a few years ago, and it's really held up.
I mean, it was the one that I just, as a kid, that was the VHS that literally was almost played to kind of like warping. It got so knackered. But I haven't watched it for like 20 years.
Yeah, I watched it on Netflix probably about 3-4 years ago, and yeah, it holds up amazingly well.
Yeah, I'd like to revisit it.
But yeah, and there's that amazing, that one of the best moments in the first film is that brutal fight that Riggs and Gary Busey have outside his house, Murtaugh's house, in the end of the first one.
Yeah, brilliant.
And they try to replicate that by having, but the final showdown, and this is a snoozer. There's a dark bowling pin sort of shootout by some big containers, and when they have that fist fight, it's mainly Mel Gibson getting kicked on the ground and then Mel Gibson punching the bad guy on the ground. It's not exactly a sort of martial arts battle that the first one was.
Hand-to-hand combat has come on in leaps and bounds, thank God. No, it was a bogus end of film fight sequence.
Also, there was one line of dialogue. I don't know whether this stuck out to you. I heard one line of dialogue and I rewound it. I was like, what? It's when Mel Gibson threatens one of the South Africans. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I do. Is it the sequence where the fish tank gets shot out?
It's just after that. Yeah, he points the gun at him and says, he says, "Get the fuck out of my country. If you stick around here, I'm going to fuck your ass."
Yeah, well, and I thought that sounds like the same sort of pillow talk that he used to talk to his wife like.
No, baseball analogies, baseball chatter. That is Red Shoe Diaries shit when they're having sex in that bed. Oh, that is horrific.
Did you notice Uncle Hank from Breaking Bad?
Yeah, it's one of his team. Yeah, gets taken out. Yeah. I mean, he must have gone bald at a very young age. Yeah. I mean, I just kind of, there's something so incredibly uncool about this film, especially when at the end where Riggs appears to be possibly dying, and they play a few bars of Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I was like, oh dear, this is cheap.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, because Eric Clapton co-collaborated on the score, and then he's okay, and then it's like, oh, here's a bit of George Harrison to play us out, and I was like, what? This is real straight down the line Hollywood product. Sort of, it's uncool and it's flippant, and I didn't like it. Do you know about Shane Black's original script?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. He dies, doesn't he? Mel Gibson's character dies.
But it's also, I mean, the whole script was rejected for being too dark.
That would have been a version. That would have been the version to see.
Exactly, because the first film is a dark film. It's not a comedy.
No. There's hardly any comedy in the first film.
Yeah, but their chemistry is electric. But and there is amusing moments in it, but it's not a comedy.
I mean, there is one sequence which is amusing, which actually I thought was in the first film, which is the whole toilet rigged under the bomb rigged under the crapper sequence.
Yeah, right.
Just the way he's talking about his wife. The whole fun. The whole reoccurring joke is Danny Glover is always just fucking really scared of his wife. But that was done well. That scene with the bomb under the crapper.
I mean, I think all of it's done well. I
think. Well, I mean, it sounds to me that you're very freshly. You've got the first one in your mind, and this is kind of like the inflated cash-in sequel.
Yeah, it is immediately. They've immediately tried. I mean, reading about there's hardly any information available online about Shane Black's original script. He says it's the best thing he ever wrote.
Oh, really?
But the only information that's available is little morsels that he drops at like Q&As and stuff. It's never been released online. I'd love to read it, but you're just like, what a wasted opportunity, because it was a genuinely interesting dynamic, and I just kind of. Because I loved all of these films growing up, but looking at it now, I'm just like, even though I kind of liked this one as a kid, looking at it now, I'm just like, wow, they went straight to sitcom, and it's so assembly line. So I just there's. I mean, this is the a lot of the films we talk about are interesting. There's not really anything at all that is interesting about this film. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a problem if you just want to be entertained, but. We shouldn't be talking about these films anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, for me, it was kind of like it rattled along. I was very nostalgic for the first half an hour of it. There's some good stuff in there. There's some good car chases in there. It's all quite fluffy, but perfectly. I mean, Richard Donner knows how to direct. There's a reason why I think I didn't watch it loads as a kid.
I didn't watch it loads either. I watched it now and again because I loved all those films, but I never liked this one. I did think Patsy Kensit was genuinely pretty good.
Yeah. And Joss Ackland's good. I mean, Joss Ackland's got presence. He's an actor.
But Patsy Kensit, considering she's got dead meat stamped on her forehead, but she's this innocent party who is just kind of hamstrung.
She's not given any screen time. I mean,
she's not. But I totally bought that she was just this person who was in this shit situation because she wanted her job, and she did. I thought. For somebody who has so little screen time, I thought, wow, she's distinctive, and I thought she was actually very good in that part. And I was surprised that she didn't really do more, No. But
okay, all right, cool. Well, look, shall we crack on with our second sequel?
Yes, let's move on to Die Hard 2, Die Harder, directed by Rennie Harlin from 1990. As he waits for his wife at Dulles International Airport on Christmas Eve, Detective John McClane is forced into battle against a group of rogue paramilitary operatives determined to kidnap a South American drug lord. Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Emergencies. We are in a code yellow.
Instrument landing system is down.
Backup systems won't come up.
Every system's dead.
These guys shut us down.
Attention all controllers. We have a code red alert. Wheaties bought maybe 2 hours. After that, those planes low on fuel aren't going to be circling. They're going to be dropping on the White House lawn.
I want every officer recalled and assembled in body armor with full weaponry in the motor pool in 5 minutes. It's time to kick it.
Our own SWAT team's gone.
Well, maybe they're just a little bit more creative than you think.
Start looking for a new miracle.
Who the hell is this?
We don't need a loose cannon on this deck.
You get the hell out of my office before I throw you out of my damn airport.
You're the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Story of my life.
They say lightning doesn't strike twice.
That's how I spent Christmas last year.
They were wrong.
McClane, is this what you were expecting?
Nah, this is just the beginning.
Bruce Willis, Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Okay, so Die Hard 2. I take it you've seen this before?
Yes, I've seen it a couple of times before as a nipper.
Again, just twice?
Oh, a few times. I mean, I've got no idea. It was a film that I've definitely seen more times than Lethal Weapon 2, for sure.
Did you like it back in the day?
What I remember about it being back in the day is obviously it pales in comparison to the first film. But I remember it was one of those things where either people absolutely slated it or people were like, oh no, it's kind of all right. And I definitely didn't hate it as a kid. Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it at the cinema. I was 9 years old. It was a 15 over here, and I just looked quite old for my age. I don't know how I got into a 15 at 9, but I did. And then I walked around school for about 6 months holding the ticket, like just waving it around, like.
That is collateral.
Yeah, no, I was just like fanning myself. Oh, what's this? Yeah, I saw Die Hard 2, whatever. Yeah, come down the cinema, I'll sort you out, boy. Yeah, I'll get you in. Don't you worry about that. But I remember when I first saw the trailer, which was on the beginning, a teaser trailer was on the beginning of the retail version of Die Hard 2, which I bought as soon as it came out, or I got my dad to buy. And I remember seeing that, understanding what the concept for the film was, and I thought, that is the most absurd thing of all time. They can't get away with that. It's Christmas again, and he's got to take on terrorists again. That has been desensitised out of me to the point where I just accept any old shit. But as a kid, it seemed ridiculous. I liked this film when I was a kid, and I have gradually... I reckon I've seen it in total over the course of my life thus far 10 times.
Right.
Every time I've watched it, I like it less and less and less. And the time I watched it last week is...
Has it reached its lowest ebb?
I don't know if it's reached its lowest ebb yet, because I think I don't know. What did you think of it?
I was disappointed with it. I remember there being like far better action sequences. There's not really any good action sequences in this film. Yeah, it's very of its time. It's very 1990. There's pages, plenty of pages. Bruce with hair. It starts off with the sight of William Sadler oiled up, practicing front kicks in a Qatar in the meal, butt naked, which I think would send the fear of any red-blooded man into a sense of fear. And I started thinking to myself, I've already seen way more asses that I've ever wanted to see doing this podcast, you know? A couple of weeks ago, I was treated to... the ass of Tommy Wiseau, and now I'm treated to the ass of William Sadler. It's basically everything that was so great with the first film is bad with this film. You know, William Sadler is no Hans Gruber. You know?
I mean, that's not his fault. You can't follow one of the greatest villains of all time. But even so, yeah, he's not a memorable villain at all. He gives it his all, but the character's just not there.
The character's not there. The character's completely underwritten. You know, rubbish. I mean, it's got some solid character actors in there. You know, Dennis Franz from is it NYPD?
Yeah, NYPD Blue. He's terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's really good. But I mean, it was just daft. I mean, what's so good about Die Hard? The whole thing about Bruce Willis's character in the first film is he was an everyman thrown into a unbelievable situation. In Die Hard 2, he is more like a superhero, you know?
Yeah. That's again, like, you know, when Die Hard 4 came out, everyone was like, "Oh God, here he is!" All of a sudden, John McClane, the people's hero, is surfing on like a Harrier jump jet. Yeah. But there is a bit of that in this film as well. Again, there's not any real peril because he's just Superman.
No, there's no peril. He never injures himself. He's never. Do you know what I mean? Where in the first film, he's doing himself injuries. He's way more, you know. Whereas this, he just seems to be indestructible, and he just pops up everywhere, and he can take on loads of people, and he can get hand grenades thrown at him in a small confined cockpit space, but still emerge completely without a scratch. It's just daft.
I think this is why I really dislike this film as much as I do, because you know I can appreciate it on the same level as I do Lethal Weapon 2. It's a very, very well made film, but Die Hard kind of drew a line under the action movie. It said, you know, in an era of Schwarzenegger and Stallone, it said we're going a different way with this. So the fact that they immediately relented again, it's like Lethal Weapon 2 that turned into a comedy straight away, and it's now John McClane is just another ridiculous action hero, and it's a real shame watching the second one because I think they put the foot wrong straight away. As a film, I think it's way too obsessed with plot. I don't think there's enough characterization in it. You know, the first Die Hard had so much characterization, and there was so many great scenes that weren't action scenes, whereas this is just relentless action and relentless plot. And you know the film's already an absurd contrivance. The fact that this is happening on Christmas Eve, the fact that it's terrorists again, it's absurd. So they don't need any more absurd contrivances. But when they put William Atherton on Holly's plane, you're just like, come on. And they've got to have Al Powell appear, and they've got to do this. Again, like Lethal Weapon 2, it just feels like assembly line Hollywood product.
Yeah, I mean, there's way too many subplots, and none of anything is fleshed out. It's all very coincidental, and there's just really dumb things in there. I mean, the twist is dumb. I mean, why bother with the whole fake army thing? What's the point?
Yeah, it would be impossible to organise.
Well, why bother doing it? You've already got all the guys in there. You've already got a team of guys in there. What's the point of doing all that just so you can have them, you know, the big switcheroo? Oh, actually, no, we're all part of that team as well. I mean, it was just.
But again, I think this was a decent comparison in the end, because you know Lethal Weapon 2 tried to kind of bring back some of the power of the first one, and this, I think they tried to. They said we need that moment where Hans Gruber turns around and he speaks with an American accent. We need a twist like that, and I guess that's what that's there for.
Yeah, I mean, it's just completely fucked the pooch.
if you were an armed police officer, a SWAT team member, going into a tense situation where, you go to a situation where people that shouldn't be there are there inexplicably, the only reason you'd say, hey, arsehole, what do I look like to you, is so that the guy could turn around and go, sitting duck.
Yeah.
I mean, when he says that, I'm like, that's lame. Also, John McClane's one-liners are really weird. When he turns around to Dennis Franz at the beginning, he says, "Hey, Carmine, what sets off the metal detector first? The lead in your arse or the shit in your brains?"
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why is lead in the arse? I mean, I suppose it's just something's up his arse, I guess, and that would set off a metal detector. Shit in your head would not. Also, he said, as Al Powell says to him at one point, "You're not pissing in someone's pool, are you?" And John McClane says, "Yeah, and I'm fresh out of chlorine." If you were going to do something as rock and roll as piss in someone's pool, you wouldn't have chlorine to put in there in the first place. So why would you have to announce that? I think I'm thinking into this a bit too much. What I'm saying is,
they're shit one-liners.
They're shit, really, really lame one-liners. And another thing that's this is a shallow thing, but I also don't like it because it's less bloody. And when the film came out and it was very well reviewed for an action sequel, everyone said this is too violent. The people who dismissed it said that anyway. It added some kind of peril, the fact that Die Hard was kind of bloody but not too bloody. It wasn't a bloodbath, but you hear the sort of there's
one sequence which is done well. Actually, I think it's the only part of the film where there is actually some bloodletting on screen, and it's just a fantastic special effect. That the throat slash of the guy who's part of that team is done really well.
I also thought that when they crashed the plane, really, really shameless but very effective.
It's fucking stupid though. Because they talk about the whole time, right? That plane is running on fumes. There's no fucking combustible fuel in there. But when it hits down, the whole fucking thing blows up.
I mean, it's shameless and not, slightly nonsensical, but I just thought it was very, very tense. For a thriller, I don't think this was very suspenseful, and I think that was one moment of suspense.
Yeah, I mean, I just found it was a bit of a dredge. I mean, the problem is there was no decent action sequences in this film.
No, I mean, Rennie Harlin doesn't do memorable. He makes very, very efficient. I mean, this is one of those movies that I think could be watched in Hollywood in filmmaking classes, or because I think it's very, very efficiently done.
It's by the book. Oh yeah, it's completely just like it's
exactly right.
By the book. There's nothing. Yeah. It doesn't venture out of a very kind of very straightforward 1, 2, 3 kind of box. But I just think it's a simple case of bigger isn't better. Is there anything that made you laugh in the film at all? There's one sequence that did make me laugh.
I mean, I didn't laugh at it, but I thought, while I was kind of marvelling at how they turned this into a very, very Hollywood movie from something that didn't feel like one, at least, the original, that moment where the woman turns to him, the woman he's been sort of interacting with at the front desk, and she basically says, I want to have sex with you. And then he says no, because I'm married, which is a double whammy, because you appeal to the men who think, oh, he's a stud, and then the women think, oh, yeah, he's loyal to his wife, isn't he wonderful? It's one of those movie star sort of gifts that they sort of put into movies that kind of just throw the film out of whack. But no, in terms of laughs, not really.
No, there was one sequence that made me laugh where the reporter is on the plane. Richard Thornberry, the arsehole journalist, and he speaks over the PA, and just with zero emotion, he just goes, "A deadly battle will ensue." It's just the deadpan delivery of how he does that is actually really funny. Really
he is one of the all-time great shitheads, though, one of the best.
Yeah, well, where else has he been a shithead? Because as soon as I saw him, I was like, I know that face.
Ghostbusters.
Ah, fuck.
Yeah, William Matheson plays shitheads like nobody else. Yeah, I mean, my mum used to watch all those airport movies when I was a kid, and I hated them. I thought they were the most boring thing of all time. So I kind of.
How do you mean? What airport movies?
Airport 77, Airport 75, Airport 79, anything with an airport and George Kennedy. She would watch it, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is killing me." And this again, Die Hard still feels fresh. It still feels contemporary even now. It feels like a shiny movie.
Die Hard could have been made yesterday. I mean.
Exactly. I mean, and this feels like a 70s airport disaster movie.
And it's just I see what you mean. And there's just too much. There's too many shitty subplots going on.
Yeah, I like the fact that his wife's involved, because over the course of her interactions, you see you actually. She reveals why they're married, because she has a bit of you can tell why they were attracted to each other, which is nice, but. Yeah, the plot doesn't really move forward when it cuts back to her.
No, I just think all those other subplots are just kind of they're all cruising in neutral. I mean, it's It's just way too many of them, and nothing really. It's a nice little device putting the wife on, and it gives you a bit of context in their relationship. But it's just like, just stick to one plot and do it really well. And give, like, all of those baddies were completely throwaway. Nobody's given any kind of sense of character. You don't remember any of the names or even any of the faces. And there's just a lot of coincidental stuff, like, and we just decided to put a load of snowmobiles there, and then and there's just a snowmobile that John McClane finds, and he just pops onto it. It's just all a bit like, it's so filmic, and so what a happy coincidence, that's there and that's there and that's there.
It's very much a Hollywood sequel. That's what's annoying about it.
It's completely by the book. I mean, it's just there's no imaginative or creativity in it at all, and it's got a fucking shitload of money thrown at it.
Yeah, and the lack of memorable action scenes. I mean, in the first action scene really is in the baggage handling, and it's a cowboys and Indians bowling pin rubbish. But the Die Hard music comes on, and I'm like, whoa! It's so weird because that music is synonymous with danger, and because Die Hard, you're permanently worrying about how he's going to get out of this impossible situation.
In Die Hard 2, there's just you're never concerned about the safety of John McClane. You know he's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, this is a strange film because I can understand why people like it. I mean, you can go back to 1990 and look at some archived newspaper reviews from the States, and pretty much across the board, it was very well liked as a movie. Yeah. And I can understand why it would be shown, because Rennie Harlin does assemble everything efficiently with no flourishes, but it's a story that's reasonably well told. I can say that much about it, but it's all plot. That's the problem, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I need to go and cleanse myself and watch Lethal Weapon and Die Hard over Christmas.
Yeah, well, also and Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is Die
Hard with a Vengeance is the best sequel. Yeah.
Actually, thinking about that twist scene where there's actually two. Does that count as a twist? I really like the scene when he's trying to convince Dennis Franz that they have to act, and he just throws him in front and then just shoots him with the blanks. That was a really nice moment.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
But yeah, it's so formulaic and so.
Yeah, I'm just and the subplot of the kooky character who lives kind of in the desolate bit of the
Marvin,
airport.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that about?
Nothing. It's about nothing. I mean, this is I've never truly loved this film, and I don't think I ever could.
No, I mean, I just had much fonder memories of it than watching it in this day and age, in the cold, harsh light of it just being really derivative and really lacking in imagination.
Yeah. We have had some correspondence on this, though. If you've ever listened to this show and want to get in touch, before we record, at least 2 weeks before we record every duo of episodes, we announce what it's going to be, and it's up on our blog post on cultfilmfaceoff.com/blog. So if you want to interact with us, anything, mini reviews, a story about when you first saw it, we'd love to hear that stuff. So just check that out. But yeah, we got a message about this from a guy called David Barber, and it says, Lethal Weapon 2 was a terrific sequel to a great action movie, but I'll go for Die Hard 2 because I saw that more times and it was constantly action-packed from start to finish, more so than Lethal Weapon 2, and it had more spectacular feel with explosions galore. I think there's something in that, because Die Hard 2 seems to me to be, it might be an early point at which Hollywood studios stopped caring about things functioning as a story so much, or a story that you can engage with. They stopped worrying about characters, because it is quite relentless, and I can appreciate that at the same time as it leaves me ice cold, and it kind of always did.
But I think the main issue here is that they just tried to cram way too much in.
There's no danger. Yeah, I didn't
find any of the action engaging. I just thought it's just dumb, that whole sequence where they're peppering the front cabin, of the aeroplane with bullets, they seem to be throwing everything with a kitchen sink at Bruce Willis, but never at any point do you feel he's in any danger.
It's a dramatically inert film as well.
I did find it quite funny that there was an old lady who regularly tases her dog on his wife's flight.
Yeah, it's formulaic box ticking stuff. I'm surprised it did as well as it did critically when it came out.
No, I mean, I just had much more of a fonder recollection of it than I did. I just found it really derivative.
I'm amazed that I'm being as harsh as this, because it's actually a well-made film. But I know which way I'm going. Do you know which way you're going? I don't care about either of these movies. We should never have talked about them on a podcast called Cult Film Face Off, so I apologise for even suggesting it. But they're both assembly line sequels that are nowhere near as good as the originals. Inevitably, so
it's just got to go down to personal preference in which you enjoy spending more time with, I suppose. Which could you watch again?
I think my dislike of Die Hard 2 may be sort of erring on the irrational side. I don't think I am ever going to watch Die Hard 2 again. I don't plan on watching Lethal Weapon 2 again, but I could.
Yeah, I could watch. I mean, I enjoyed Lethal Weapon 2 more than I enjoyed Die Hard 2.
So did I.
Well, there you go.
There wasn't much in it. But yeah, Lethal Weapon 2, amazingly, is the winner.
There you go.
But I'd stay away from both. I'd watch the originals.
Yeah, I mean that's also. I mean that's the takeaway for me is that I really want to see the first of the originals. Yeah. Obviously, I've seen Die Hard more than possibly. Well, I don't know. Predator's pretty close in terms of action films. I've watched Predator, RoboCop, and Die Hard are the three that I've watched more than any other action film. But it's been a very long time since I've seen Die Hard. It's got to be. Edging on 7-8 years ago.
There's got to be a re-release coming, isn't there? When did it come out? 88. So next year there's got to be a 30th anniversary big cinema release. That'd be great to see that on the big screen.
Oh yeah, too. Have you ever seen it on the big screen?
No, Die Hard. No, never.
I'm just. It's one of those. I don't think I've ever seen it actually listed in Prince Charles Cinema in London, which does brilliant. Does brilliant screenings of very old films. I can't ever remember seeing Die Hard, but I could be wrong. But I'd love to see Die Hard. Brand new print. That would be golden.
Yeah, so I'm going to hold off on checking out a Blu-ray. I'll wait for the cinema for that one. But Lethal Weapon 2 is the winner somehow. Thank you very much for listening. Check out our social media channels. As I said earlier, check out our blog on cultfilmfaceoff.com and you'll see the next 2 episodes we're going to record at least 2 weeks before we record them. And all of our episodes are making their way slowly to YouTube, cut to video. So check those out as well. And have a nice Christmas and we'll see you in the new year, I think. Yeah. So cheers.
Merry Christmas, Charles!
See you later.
Cult Film Face-Off.
Would you do another one?
Another Die Hard?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
What do you look for in the thing?
I was trying to get him to kill me in this one. I wanted my character to be killed off in this one. They wouldn't let me do it. They said no.
If they came at you and said we want to do Die Hard 3, would you consider it?
I don't know if there's anything to do. I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to make this one better than the first film. But I don't think so. But who knows? Ask me a couple years from now.
This plastic snow is very delicate.